Ethics refers to the philosophical study of the right and wrong of human behavior. It asks, what are the morally right ways to behave? While right and wrong might appear black and white, it doesn't take long for us to stumble upon situations where making the right decision is complex and unclear. So, throughout time, philosophers have come up with ethical frameworks to help us think through moral dilemmas. Let's look at a few common ethical frameworks to see which one resonates most with you. Today, we'll look at utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics. Firstly, we have utilitarianism. According to the utilitarian framework formulated by philosophers such as Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, an action is morally right if it produces the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. This often involves assessing the potential positive and negative consequences of various actions and choosing the one that maximizes overall well-being. Utilitarianism can be applied in various contexts, such as public policy, where it might guide governmental decisions by seeking to maximize the well-being of the most people within a population. However, here's a key criticism. A utilitarian view could justify harmful actions against a minority if it benefits the majority. In this situation, unhappiness for some people would be tolerated if it maximizes happiness for most people. So, let's move on to another ethical framework that might be more palatable. Let's try deontology. Deontological ethics, with philosophers like Immanuel Kant at its core, posits that moral principles are not dependent on their consequences. Something is either inherently right or wrong regardless of what happens as a result. For instance, telling the truth might be considered an intrinsic moral duty, and therefore lying is wrong regardless of its outcomes. From this perspective, lying to your child about Santa Claus is wrong, even though this myth brings happiness to the child. So, critics of deontology highlight that this perspective is too black and white and fails to engage with reality. Let's try one more time with virtue ethics. Virtue ethics focuses on individuals' character and personality traits instead of their actions. It neither focuses on whether an action is right or wrong or what its consequences will be. Instead, its focus is on the moral character of the actor. Virtue ethics is rooted in ancient Greek and Roman philosophical thought, particularly the writings of Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. Aristotle proposed his theory of virtue ethics in the 4th century BC, suggesting that humans should be guided by their character rather than external rules or regulations. Aristotle argued that cultivating certain habits and traits, known as virtues, was essential to living an ethical life and reaching a state of human flourishing. A person who lives by this ethical framework would spend their time focusing on cultivating certain ethical perspectives, such as loyalty, courage, compassion, and kindness. Our actions should be focused on cultivating those traits in ourselves. So, being ethical isn't as straightforward as we might have first thought. The decisions we make will be right or wrong based upon the ethical framework we live by. Each of us needs to reflect on our own ethics and choose a framework that we are comfortable with living by throughout our lives.